Hi, I'm Jean Templin, the CEO and founder of NIAC, and we are recording our first episode of In the Call. And I have a very good friend of mine, Howard, here I've known for years, and I admire as a sales professional. Howard, want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Thank you, Jan. Thanks for having me. So happy to be here today. My name is Howard Steinberg. To Jean's point, I am a fractional sales and business development professional, coming up on 16 years of doing so after a good stint at an enterprise digital media company. Uh, and I work with any manner of tech companies. As mentioned, as a fractional professional, I will typically align with clients for anywhere from 3 months to some have been clients for more than 10 years at this point. So, yes, very, very much in that world of selling either B2B or direct to consumer type products, and also have background in creating strategic alliances, more what I would define as strategic business development.
So I guess we talk a lot about in this podcast about building relationships, right? That is really the key to winning deals. And tell me a little bit about kind of the shift in buyer behavior you're seeing. I hear things from the buyers coming in armed with AI stats. They can go into Perplexity, they can go into ChatGPT, ask a lot about your company. How are you feeling? How are you seeing that happen when you're talking to buyers?
Sure. And I will answer that question, I promise, but more so than the how is the right, Gene. It is the default these days. We're not the only ones on this side of the equation armed with,
Right.
those types of assistance, that kind of information, that kind of knowledge, readiness. So, right, everybody's informed, or at least they really should be. And so no longer do you have necessarily quote unquote a discovery call. The audience on the other side of the line, they know, right? They're there, they're seeing, they know, they're informed, they're making things happen. They're speaking to you and one to five of your other competitors as well. So, really, I think you have to come in just as well armed. And while I'm a believer, gray hairs aside, in new wonderful technologies and adopting AI to use, for any and all purposes, whether automation or other, I'm old school as well, right? So, I still rely on some other, I wouldn't even call them tools, but just, knowledge, know-how, grit, respect, communication. So, like I said, aging myself a little bit, but I think folks my age and thereabout have the benefit of both modern technology and the old school way of doing things of, really putting nose to the grindstone. And, we'll get into this a little bit deeper in this conversation, I know, but, why people decide to purchase from folks, right? Why
Right.
this vendor versus that vendor, this product or that platform versus that one?
And this is really, I mean, we always say it's the human to human connection. It's that trust that needs to be built. And AI cannot do that right now. It is really not something that we see being replaced. It's actually where the humans shine, right? And allowing and helping some of the younger kids and some of the younger folks out there who are coming into this world where they haven't had the privilege. And I think there was a big shift that happened really that came from, we used to do all of our selling in person, and you used to meet the people and you go to their offices and you sit down with them. And then COVID really happened and everything changed a lot, right? And we haven't really changed back to that because the buyers are shifting and they don't actually want us to come into the office as much, right? They want to do their information gathering and understanding about you and the products in a digital format versus meeting face to face. And that means that there's a lot of different skills to build that trust that we had the privilege of being able to do it in person. And now it's kind of shifting a little bit different in today's world. So I guess thinking that through, a little bit. We've spent a lot of time, and it worked in the old world, enabling sales teams or learning about products. And then we spent a lot of time analyzing deals after the fact. How do we change now? I see this new world where we're on these calls, right? We have the ability to pull signals off the back end, not only after the calls, but in real time. And so we have this ability now to really optimize deals in real time with some of the signals you were talking about before, like the grit, the old school. How do you see that evolving?
Yeah, great point. I mean, we're there, right? I mean, obviously things will continue to evolve, but it's not as if we can say that we're not there yet and we foresee what's going to happen next week or next quarter or next year. We're there, right? It's at our fingertips. And to your point that you made, Gene, right? There's definitely a benefit and honor to be able to sit down. Why do we want to meet in person? Well, what better way to actually make an impression, right? This is wonderful, but to actually get to see somebody, look them in the eye, shake their hand, look at their body language, right? Gain some understanding there. But you're not real time coaching. You're not tapping into tips. You're not playing with your playbook as you're sitting down at an in person meeting. So, as the salesperson, you can look at this as turning kind of the game around a little bit too, not to gamify the sales process, but indeed
Right.
it is a process, right? And now we've got all these tools at our fingertips that can be used in real time, right? What better way to ensure I'm hitting all of those points because I've done my homework, right? Whether it's a
Right.
manual piece of homework or AI that told me 100 things that I need to know about this target and why we're the right fit for them, or at least trying to convince them of such. So, kind of where this is going, is going to be a continual evolution, whether it's a step function or linear. But really, where more do we go, right? At the end of the day, what I'll do oftentimes on behalf of my clients, yes, I want to automate some of it, but still to this day, with AI making the amazing leaps that it's made, most of us still have enough of an eye or an ear or a mind to detect what is written via AI versus what is being drafted by a human being, right?
Right.
And to that point, Gene, I agree with you. I don't see us being replaced, not fully anyhow, right? Emotion is always part of this, right? But I lean back on this. Who do people do business with? Who and why? There's a need, there's budget, your product fits, and I think you used the word trust earlier. I'll go ahead and add on. They trust you and they like you.
Yeah.
So it's not so much of a, hey, I have a need, unless I'm pushed into a corner that I need something yesterday that I'm not going out there comparison shopping, right? It's not always price that's the most important piece. It's not always the latest and greatest cutting edge technology that's going to win, right? If they find parity when they've done their homework and say, yeah, it's either this platform, that platform, or this platform, they're all within, 1 or 2% cost of one another, but hey, I had a conversation with Jean and my gosh, she really seems to care about my business. She knows it, right? So I think there's a lot of folks that are coming up on there's going to be table stakes amongst competitors in a lot of different spaces. And
Hmm.
so that could certainly benefit the buyer, right? They may negotiate a little bit harder. They may ask one of those three platforms, if not all three of them, can you drop your price by
But
15%?
let
Or
me ask you, if somebody asks you something like that, can you drop your price? Like, what's your comeback? Like, because I think younger sales, and that's me because I'm founder-led sales, right? When people sort of do that in my head, I'm always like, oh, I want them to like it. I want them to do all these things. And I'm getting better at saying, no, this is the value, right? Like, but it takes some time to kind of fix that. What tips would you give to somebody around when somebody pushes back on pricing? What are some of the ways that you have in your years been able to push back?
sure. Yeah, no, great question, and thank you for putting me on the spot here. But I don't know if I'd call it a trick. I mean, quite honestly, Gene, you bring up a really good point to talk about the value that you create. And look, I mean, a price is a price, and I think a lot of times what I've gone back with is, look, we have a good number of clients. We value you as a client as well. I don't know that I can do anything for you on price because we're also running a commercial business here. We are not a charity, and I won't say that in those words, obviously,
Right.
right? But I'll intimate using a very professional tone. And look, if it's a matter of if a customer comes back to me and says, look, if you don't drop your price 15%, we're going with a competitor. You know, if I am empowered to do so and I know that there's margin there, I will make that decision. But more than often, like mentioned, I'm a fractional resource. So I've got somebody that I'm reporting to, whether that's a C-level exec or other. So I will escalate it at that point, right? I can always fall back on, and God's honest truth, I will go ask management if I can gain the exception for your 15% ask. And if management comes back and says, yes, we can do that, or why don't you offer them 6% less or something in the middle, or hey, no setup fee or first 3 months free with a 1 year agreement at 15% off of list price. There are various ways to go about it. And it's easy, quote unquote, on this side to speak about, oh, we don't want to compete on price, or we will not compete on price. Our price is our price, right? I don't walk into Nordstrom and tell them their pair of jeans is not worth $150. I want to pay 30, right? They'll tell me to walk out of Nordstrom, right? Go get your pair of
Yeah.
jeans down the block at such and such. So, yes, value and value perception. I mean, the hard part again is if indeed, as buyers often do, as you and I both alluded to on this podcast, are educated, are informed, are doing their due diligence, whether it's a formal RFP or hey, we're speaking to four of your closest competitors. I want to find out more also. Well, tell me a little bit more about why you're asking for a lower price. And they could just say, as you mentioned, "Yeah, I've got margins to protect too. I'm also a commercial entity and I've got choice." All of that is true, right?
Yeah.
But the hope would be in building the relationship that you can bump off of price or maybe meet them somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, that makes sense. So let me ask you this. If you could give our listeners one tip that would help them tomorrow, right? Something that you were told when you started sales, what would it be?
Sure. Um, a little cliche, but always keep your eyes and ears open, right? I also suffer sometimes from keeping this open all the time, but the good Lord gave us two of these and one of these, right? So as you're developing that rapport, maybe you have it already. Maybe this is a past client or a past prospect or somebody that you used to work with, right? Listen, right? Listen, that folks are happy to share as much as they're willing to share. And that which you're trying to find out, don't be bashful. Ask questions in a very tactful, respectful way, so that you can come forth and again, at the end of the day, there has to be a fit first and foremost, right? If that target doesn't really have a need, what are you doing? Right? You're wasting your time and you'd rather go to somebody who actually has a need and spend your time there.
Right.
Right. So I'll go back to that and just say, look, again, this and this and then this. Ask those questions, right? And
Be
if you have,
genuine, right? Like really, and I think I'm guilty of that because I love my product and I just want to talk, 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 talk about it, right? And I forget to listen. So I know one of the AI tools, our tool actually that we use always reminds me to listen, and it reminds me to pause and listen to them or restate something that they said so they know that I'm actually listening, right? So that respectful piece that you said, I think that is when I see the difference in a sales call when I listen, like you said, and I was respectful. And then I can come with the questions that really dig into the problems that they're solving more. But if I'm just spewing, which again, I do. So I wish you would have told me that a couple months ago. So let me ask you one more question then. What AI tools are you currently using? If you're using any, let me know.
yeah, yeah, for sure, Nyack. I'm a fan. There's a reason I'm here. I'm using Nyack and I'm really enjoying the process and the experience, and it's helping to keep me focused, certainly. So I won't keep beating that drum. I use Dripify to automate some of my sequences and my outbound reaches, right? But I also mix in some manual as well, right? So I'll run some kind of ABC tests myself to see what's resonating. Of course, I'm using ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, the various AI tools that are out there. And then just recently, I came across one called Limi AI, which is more around brands and how they show up within AI
Mhm.
result sets, because we know consumers are out there at the end of the day. Consumers are out there using AI platforms and agents as search engines now, right? So
Yep.
Google is losing share, et cetera. So, obviously they're a large player within the AI world as well. So I don't, no sympathy here for Google just at the moment, but net, there's any number of tools that are out there, and I'm leaning into it. Something like Limi came across my bow, and I spoke with their co-founder and CEO recently, and I was really impressed by that idea of brands. Because when we talk about here, Nyack being a B2B sale, not everything. Of course, some of them are truly like a SaaS software is often, B2B with an end user being B, but oftentimes our B2B sale leads to a consumer as well, B2B to C, right?
Right.
If I'm selling to Nordstrom or the Gap, yeah, I'm obviously doing something I want to sell to them that'll help enhance whatever it is that they're offering beyond just apparel or shoes. But it's ultimately got to be, if it makes it down to the consumer level, like an automation platform or personalization platform, let's say. Gene comes to the website at Banana Republic for women and wants a black sweater with the green stripes. Well, okay, great. I want to make sure that what I'm giving Jean are indeed a result set that are hopefully unique to her. She lives in the Bay Area. It might be a little bit, maybe I'm going to show her a turtleneck or a cashmere sweater first and order the products differently than if my better half here in Scottsdale went and did a search for a black sweater with stripes in Scottsdale, right? It might be a short sleeve version with green
Right.
accents and stripes, right? So, again, think about what it is we're selling, what the fit is, what's the enhancement, who is our ultimate business target for us, who is their customer, right?
Mm.
If it's I'm selling to Salesforce, again, they're not necessarily going to the consumer level. They're selling
Mm.
to corporations who have professionals who are also, by the way, consumers. But I'm not selling a CRM tool or something like this down to the consumer level. But I want to know who that target's ultimate business is. How do they operate? And how and where are we a fit?
Right.
So, yeah.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Absolutely needed. Absolutely needed. So let's turn to the rapid fire then. I'd like to ask you, if you don't mind sharing, and you can pass if you want, one of the biggest mistakes that you did while you were in sales. And I'll have them. I know I have mine. And if you don't mind sharing with everybody and kind of the lesson learned from it.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'll certainly give that. I'm happy to. Look, again, I guess I'll default to this. I'm a native New Yorker. In my younger years, was certainly a bit more aggressive, let's say, a little more in your face than I am today. Again, I maintain that idea of respect. I believe I've always been respectful. I was raised right. But I think the mistake that I'll tell you I've made is, stop short of calling it, an over pursuit, but there is no exact science and you just don't know. And I think when you've got the experience, then you can nurture a sale, right? Oh gosh, it's been 3 business days. I haven't heard back from this prospect. We were hot and heavy. I thought we were signing the deal on Tuesday. Now it's Friday. I'm not going to message said target on Friday and again on Monday and Tuesday. At some point, it's just too much, right? So you have to, they say oftentimes in professional sports, when a younger player gets to a certain level, he or she notices that the game slows down a bit, right?
Right.
And I think that's the lesson that I've taken, right? I want to be communicative, right? What I
So
really
before you weren't, you were kind of like
That's
in your
right. I was
face,
a
New
little
York
bit
style.
impatient.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. And now it's, look, again, I want to be communicative. In a perfect world, Gene, I'll say this. One of my biggest pet peeves is either ghosting or getting no answer at all. But that's the terms of the game today, right? So I can
Right.
follow up a couple times, not a day later, right? Maybe give a little bit of space and ask those, probing questions. Hey, have you made a decision yet? I know it's been a week since we've spoken. Just curious to know if we're still in the mix. You're
Yeah.
going to get hopefully you'll get an answer. And by the way, if you get no answer, that's also an answer.
So where are your predictions for sales in the next 12 months? Like, do you see game changing things changing? I mean, we have a buyer changing, we have a lot of technology changing. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, great question too. And hey, predictions are just that. They're just predictions, right? I'll tell you what I don't foresee. I don't see AI speaking to AI to close deals here, right? So I'm
Me
I'm
neither.
thankful for that. Uh, again, a little bit of a cop out here on the answer, but you know, I think we're there, and if not getting darn close to that point where we're fully prepared, the sales cycle can ultimately be shorter, right? At the end of the day, the seller is ready to sell something at a given price for a given term and a given level of access, and the buyer really would be the one ultimately that would determine what the sales cycle looks like, right? So I think we're going to wind up seeing shorter sales cycles. Now, anything can change. Budgets may not be approved, sign off by legal or sign off by C level so and so. But I think you're going to find a real tight organization on the buyer side, right? Where it's like, yeah, we've determined we have a need. We have all these initiatives for 2026, or you mentioned 12 months from now. 2027, we want to expand to 13 countries and have these types of tools available and launch 17 products. So I think you're going to find a lot more kind of tight knit on the other side, on the buyer side, you know, decisions being made more swiftly, right? With
Mhm.
more background to them and possibly allowing, even more power on that side for those negotiations. Remember the comment we made about that, you don't knock 15% off, I'm going to your competitor. Well, what sales manager or CRO wants to hear that? Are
So
you
you're
kidding me?
saying shorter sales cycles because the AI driven buyer is really going to know what they want, what they need to move forward and have more approvals and different things in place
I think it can move a
because they're
lot more
getting powered
swiftly.
up by AI already and they're not spending all their time is really spent on just internal coordination and less on figuring out what's the fit. So, very similar to what we say at NIAC, we basically know that we see the same thing, we believe the same thing. That first call you're going to have with them when they raise their hand to have that call with you, you better come prepared. You get one chance to get it right. And that's why optimizing in the call and using your in call data and your processes is going to become I believe, anyways, is going to become even more and more important to corporations to optimize the deal, right? Because it's no longer you can come back 2 weeks later. They're already gone, right? By the time you go talk to your boss and be like, well, let's call in a minute 11. Like, you don't do that. I don't see that happening in the future, right? It's going to
No,
be
no.
moving all into real time optimization and like There'll be hints, there'll be other things like that you can use, maybe even a bargain by your boss in the future. Who knows? Like we're just beginning to touch that stuff and really think it differently, right? Like, cause now we have the compute power to do it. We have the signals coming back off of the calls in real time. And now we can use those immediately to help. Even if they're in person, you can still do a lot of this, right?
Absolutely
So
right. And it's
yeah,
table stakes. To your point about being prepared and ready to go, that's table stakes. I mean, again, it's hard to think of too many products that are out there, no matter what startups tell you, everybody's got a competitor, right? And if even if you don't think you compete with someone,
we
if a
do.
prospective buyer tells you, I believe product Y is very similar to yours, or we're going to make a choice between Y and your product, even if you don't believe they compete with you, it doesn't matter. The buyer is going to dictate those terms.
So I guess let's wrap it up. Let's tell people thank you so much. You've been so informative. Tell people how they can find you.
Thank you, Jane. Yeah, sure. So Howard Steinberg, it's Steinberg. Website is in process of being updated. LinkedIn is www.linkedin.com/in/H Steinberg. Spelled that for you. Email is howard at the letter H, the word Scott, or name Scott with two T's, M like Mary, O like Oscar.com, Howard at hscottmo.com. And I'll leave my mobile. Happy to do that. 415-971. And Gene, I can't thank you enough. This has been
Thank
wonderful.
you. It's been wonderful. Thank you.